we don't understand hore we perceive, we look at our marriages, we look at our relationships, we look at our lives from a tinted. There's a tint on my window. Honale trauma where this is concerned. Because so now what I'm doing is I'm perpetuating my own stereotypes on my own, on my own children, right? So what happens is there is really nothing wrong with the water. The only problem is that I was not conscientized, in that particular world. So I don't understand the water well. So one of the topics I feel that we need to speak about tonight, I've got a message here that I've titled "Fix Your Lens, and you will fix your life." If you want to fix your marriage, you have got to fix your lens. Now, and there's a reason why I want this particular story, because this story is very, very important. So one of the things that I share quite often is, I guess when I look at the story, the story of the nagging wife and the neighbor. And that particular story goes something like this. Memung had this, she had this particular tendency, when she looks at her neighbors, she'll always complain to the husband and say, I think there is something wrong with my neighbors. It's a laundry. Every single time they do the laundry, when they started, there's always something wrong with the laundry. And she would complain to the husband every single day, and every single week. And one time the husband decides to take the matters into his own hands. And he decides to say, let me deal with this particular situation. And he deals with that particular situation. And one morning, the wife opens up the window and opens up the curtains, and she looks outside and she says, my neighbors are actually, they've improved. They are better. They're better people now. They can do, a better job when it comes to the laundry. And the husband looks at the wife directly, in her eye and says, no, baby, it is not the neighbor. The problem was your window. The problem was every single time you look at the neighbors, you are looking, you're looking at the neighbors through a window that is dirty, through the window that is tinted. And many times I feel that we don't understand, Tori. We perceive, we look at our marriages, we look at our relationships, we look at our lives from a tinted window. And I don't want to use that particular word lightly. We look at things from our dirty windows. Now, why is that very important? Pastor B, when you do a basic search on the word philosophy, as a noun, you will find that a philosophy is defined as a theory or an attitude that acts as a guiding principle for behavior. So what that means is everyone has got a theory. There is an attitude that acts as as a guiding principle for behavior. You do certain things because you perceive them a certain way. So one of the things tonight, the concept of perception versus perspective. To say in my marriage, right, what is the perception that I hold in my marriage? In other words, when I'm looking at my husband, when I'm looking at my wife, am I looking at my wife from a clean kind of a window, or am I looking at my wife or my husband from a dirty, kind of a window? And I'll explain, right? I tell the story all the time, and people laugh. They laugh at me when I tell them that every single time my son, Toti and Junior, are next to the water, I have got this deep-rooted fear that my kids will drown. Right, and the reason why I've got that fear is because I come from Thapelo, and when we were growing up, we didn't really grow up around water. We grew up being quite afraid. All right, and the problem with that particular perception is that even when I had taken swimming lessons for 3 years, right, every single time my kids are around the water, I feel like they will drown. And the truth is there is nothing wrong with my kids knowing how to swim. The problem was every single time my kids are around the water, I am triggered because there's a on the deep side of me. Honale this, there's a tint on my window. Honale trauma where this is concerned. So sometimes I can literally go and tell my kids, "Oh, guys, I think you guys must not swim," and that would be unfair, because now what I'm doing is I'm perpetuating my own stereotypes on my own, on my own children, right? So what happens is there is really nothing wrong with the water. The only problem is that I was not conscientized in that particular world. So I don't understand the water well. So what happens is the perception I have when it comes to that, there's no way that window can be clean. I view that situation from a tinted window perspective. I view it from a dirty window perspective. Recently we were in Neisner with my wife and my kids, and my wife observes this kid that's busy eating a cucumber like they're eating an apple. And she says to me, look at that kid. That kid is eating, she's eating a cucumber like she's eating an apple. Now, you see what happens was that particular scene we were watching, to us, it's unheard of, because our kids cannot eat a cucumber like that. They will refuse to eat it. But in that household where health is prioritized, in that household where things like, we must eat healthy. We need to make sure that we prioritize eating greens. In that particular household, it might not work in our household, because in our household, it triggers us because we don't have that particular perception. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you guys tonight is I'm sharing this because I need you to understand that in our relationships, we get into our relationships with lens sometimes that is not necessarily clean, right? We get in because we come from certain backgrounds that we need to deal with. And the problem with many of us that we don't realize is that what attracted you, oh Lord help me, what attracted you to somebody when you are broken will disgust you when you are healed. Whatever attracts you to anyone when you are broken, that very same thing will disgust you when you are healed. Now, what am I trying to say to you? I'm trying to say, now, one of the things that we need to actually go look at is that we need to deal with the tinted windows of our own pasts. Sometimes we need to go and look at the fact, we need to ask ourselves questions like, when we were growing up, did we see our mother and our father, literally in the same setting, loving each other, right? Because what happens is when you get into an environment where there is somebody that loves you and somebody that you love, and until you have conscientized yourself, until you have worked on your own perception of what love is, right? You might look at that particular situation and find that situation, it's actually a good situation. God has brought love to you. God has brought whatever that you want. But the problem is you can't handle it because you've got your own level, the dimensions of brokenness that you have not dealt with. And because you have not dealt with your own brokenness, what happens is what you are projecting in that particular relationship is really nothing but just pictures of brokenness. And pictures of brokenness sometimes can break great things that God has brought in your lives because you have not dealt with that. So, number one, it's important that you ask yourself this question to say, in this relationship, in the relationship that I'm having right now, am I the best version? Am I the healed version of myself in this marriage right now? Have I dealt with the tints? Have I dealt with the dirtiness of my window, right, in as far as this relationship is concerned? Because sometimes it's important to go deal with the fact that my mom and my dad divorced when I was 3 years old. I don't know what a father looks like as a model. I don't know what a mother looks like as a model. I don't know what a husband looks like as a model. I don't know what a wife looks like as a model. Now, what happens is the periods where we need to go and deal with that particular brokenness and say, I must heal this part of me. Because if I don't heal this part, if I don't heal that particular part, the problem with me is I'm going to bleed on somebody who did not injure me. I'm going to bleed on somebody who literally did not, and who knows nothing about what happened to me. So the problem with us is we go on with this lens. We do things with this particular lens. We do our relationships with this lens. We don't fix our lens, and because we don't fix our lens, we've got a problem, of projecting our brokenness in the relationships that should actually just enhance and make us better people. We cannot become better in our relationships. Why? Because there's brokenness that we have not dealt with. And guys, this is something that is very, very important. I tell guys all the time, and I'm going to repeat it. I tell guys all the time that people sometimes when you are broken, you'll be attracted to certain people. Guys, you'll be attracted to certain people when you are broken. And you'll find that the minute you are healed, that very same person that you're attracted to now disgusts you. Why? Because the healed version of you does not have resources for this broken thing that is in front of you. We attract to us not what we want, but we attract what we are. So it is important that we understand that in our own families, we have to ask ourselves continuously to say, who are we in this particular family? Are we healed? Am I the healed husband in this family? Am I the healed wife in this family? Am I the healed mother in this family? Am I that healed? Because you see, the problem with many of us is that sometimes we are raised by mothers who were single mothers. And they were single mothers, because because of situations. Now what they do is they try to survive for you. They do everything in their power to protect you. They do everything in their power to make sure that you're not affected by the situation that they find themselves in. They're doing everything in their power to make sure that you're protected. Now you grew up in this particular environment where your mother is operating literally at her highest level of masculinity. And you become so confident, and it becomes so easy for you to work with your level of masculinity. Now the problem is when you find a man who operates literally within the apex of his masculinity, the problem is your masculinity and his masculinity are going to clash. You're going to have problems, and you don't. Now the problem is even if we're asking you to come down to your femininity, you don't know what that looks like because you grew up in the family where feminine energy. You've never seen feminine energy work. So what happens is you are broken, but you don't know it yet. The reason why our families literally cannot thrive is because we are trying to get people to the feminine energy, but they can't come down to the feminine energy. Why? Because all they're used to is to survive all their lives. They're used to worrying about things. They're used to worrying about, we're worried about finances. We are worried about life. We're worried about making sure that the kids are okay. We are worried about making sure that the family is okay. We are worried, but we want to make sure that everything is okay. You doing that is you operating with the apex of your masculinity. When you find a man who is not literally when you find a man who is in the apex of his masculinity, that particular marriage cannot stand. It cannot last. So what is happening is when we speak to you and we say, DK, please come down to your feminine energy. You look at me and you say, but coach, I don't know what that looks like. I've never seen anyone in the feminine energy. You've literally never seen anyone operate with the nurturing, receiving, calm, composed kind of energy. Why? Because when you were growing up, it was part of your modeling. You saw your mother literally operate in that particular space. Now, the problem with many of us today, guys, the problem with us is that even as husbands, we have never seen people executing in the roles of a husband. Now we're in households where we're expected to provide answers, and we don't know how to start. Why? Because the problem with us is that we are, oh Lord help me, we are broken in areas. And because we are broken in those particular areas, that particular lens that is tinted, that lens that is dirty, it's now, it's really what we are projecting in our own families. We are breeding brokenness because we have not dealt with our own brokenness. Our relationships cannot stand because we have not dealt with our own brokenness. But it's important that we understand this. This is the part that's quite important. The problem with many of us is that when we tell you of the principle, the 80-20 principle, where we say your wife or your husband has got 80% of everything that you want and 20% that you actually don't have. The minute you are upset with the 80%, the 20% will look like it's 100%. And sometimes we get to be attracted to the 20% and we're thinking, no, let's leave the 80% for the 20%. But now the problem with the 20% is that the 20% is appealing to your brokenness. And because the 20% is appealing to your brokenness, the minute you heal, that small part of you, that 20% part of you. When you heal, I'm over there. The 20% disgusts you. And it's late already because you've broken your opportunities with the 80%. And now the problem is you've got to live with the 20%, over here and make sure that that 20% feels like it's 100%. And it's a mission to do that. And that is why I'm saying it is important that you deal with your own brokenness. Our relationships deserve the healed versions of us. Our finances deserves the healed versions of us. Our families deserves the healed versions of us. But we must fix our lens. It is our philosophy that is keeping us in the places that we are. It's our philosophy. It's our lens. The perception through which we see things. Perception is temporary. The minute you change that perception to perspective, you move from the person that you were to the person that God has destined you to be. What am I saying to you tonight? I'm saying this because it's something that is quite important. Like the nagging wife, like this particular person that used to complain about other people. Every single time you look at things from a dirty window, it will always look like it's external to you. It's not external. It's not external. It is internal. It's your problem. Fix the lens. We're operating in roles that we've not literally asked ourselves questions. How do we heal in this particular space? How do I heal as a father? How do I heal as a mother? How do I heal as a husband? How do I heal as a wife? How do I heal? How do I heal to make sure that my kids find literally the healed version of me? Ladies and gentlemen, our brokenness is the reason why our families are still in the same places. Our brokenness. What is our brokenness? Our brokenness is, it's every single thing that you believe to be true. Everything you consent to and believe to be true about a thing, about a situation. If that thing is wrong, you have a limiting belief that looks like it's an empowering belief. And until you deal with that limiting belief as if it's a limiting belief, it will never ever empower you. Coach TJ, what are you saying? I'm saying we now need to go and look at ourselves and say, right, are we still surviving? Do you still have got to be that, that masculine self? Do you still have got to be, do you still have to do that? And the different roles in our lives require us to become, to operate in different energies all the time. People think I'm in my masculine energy most of the time, but when it comes to work, I work with two guys who are exceptional masculine guys. I've got to be at work sometimes and go like, okay, I need to come down to my feminine energy, be the guy that fixes things. Now, let's deal with this. Let's become around it. But in our families, we need that. And here's the question that I'm asking tonight. I'm asking this particular question to say, in your family, who's masculine and who's feminine? Have you ever seen how feminine energy operates and how it looks in your own family? Do you not have to worry because you know that your husband or your wife has got it? They've got this thing covered. Are you that confident? Are you okay to say, I know for a fact that this is basically done? It's sorted. It's done. Our brokenness, it's the reason why. It's the reason why we are in the same place. Let's heal. Let's heal. And why is this very important? This is very, very important because one of the messages that I've been preaching recently is that every single time you do not heal, even enemies that are not powerful, that exceeds you with power will literally defeat you because they find you when you're not healed. And I always say this particular, I share this scripture all the time. The Bible says in Genesis chapter number 34, the story of, a young lady called Dinah with a man called Shechem. The Bible says, two sons, verse number 25 of Genesis chapter 34, it says the two sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, killed the entire city because, they found the entire city while they were healing. We have got to start healing for the sake of our children. We have got to start healing for the sake of our generation. We have got to start healing for the sake of literally for the sake of the people that we are building for in the future. But the only way we do that is we must be able to go and look at ourselves and say, as a husband, have I healed? As a wife, have I healed? As a mother, have I healed? Right? Have I healed? Have I healed from literally from the past traumas that has literally given me a skewed view in as far as this situation is concerned. And all I'm saying is, let's heal for the sake of our children. Let's heal for the sake of the future. And let's heal for the sake of the legacy that we need to build. Thank you very much.